And we're live. Hi, everyone. How are you doing? There seems to be a delay on here. My picture. See, my connection is unstable. Can people hear me? Seems to be a delay going on here. I'm trying to get my picture. Okay, I see we've got a few people joined. Can people see me? Because on my screen, I can't see my actual face. Can people actually see me? Put in the box if you can. Yeah, there is a delay. I'm finding there is a delay. Okay, you can see and hear me, Nathan. Okay, cool. That's good to know. For some reason, it's not allowing me to do my background. Yep. Okay, cool. Okay, so people said they can. That's good. Okay, cool. People can see and hear me. So, welcome to our session today on mental fitness. So, for some reason, I can't get my back screen to show what I would like it to show. So, this is the teething issues of the first time doing this. I don't know why there is the delay. All right, let me close this down. Okay, I think that's better now. Is that stop the delay? Okay, if the delay stopped, can you just put a one in the chat just so that I know that it's okay to proceed? If the delay has stopped, can you put a one in the chat? There's still a little delay. Okay, cool. Okay, anyway, we'll get started. So, welcome everyone to our first live Q&A, and this one in particular is on mental fitness. So, I wanted to just give a space and a time for everyone to be able to have this discussion where we can talk about all things in relation to mental fitness. So, is there any questions that anyone wants to put forward? If you do, then please write it in the chat. One of the things that I just did want to start with, I've written a few notes just to of points that I think are really important and that I wanted to make sure that we were discussed and highlighted during this time together. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is that every change that we make to our lifestyle is perceived as a stressful event in our brain. And it's really important that we do understand this and that we're aware of this. You know, whenever we're making lifestyle changes, to our brain, it is a threat because it's something different and it's something unknown. And it's something the unknown is what we often can be fearful of. And so when we are making lifestyle changes, when we want to, you know, better our lives in some way, shape, or form, it often can be perceived as a threat. And that is why change can be hard. That's why often maintaining long term changes, it can be difficult for people because of this very fact. And so it's really interesting that when we're going through changes, when we're going through transitions, that is why mentally it can be so challenging for us. So I just wanted to kind of share that as a first point. But is there any questions that people want to ask in relation to mental fitness? Because I do want to be able to answer your questions around things that's coming up. Any questions? Well, the second thing what I also wanted to highlight was in relation to mental fitness is that this is why it's really important for us to attach a sense of meaning to any changes that we're going to make. And, especially when it's a difficulty, especially when it's a challenge, something that that we're not used to, by putting a sense of meaning to that, we are actually able to release dopamine into our brain. And so even when we're doing something that is difficult, the more that you attach a sense of meaning and that you are showing and telling yourself that you're getting closer to a desired goal, it actually releases dopamine in the brain. And that is actually there to enable us to push through on something that we desire to do. And so the brain has actually been created in a way that it has these defense mechanisms that actually are there to help us and to push us through, especially when we have difficult situations happening in our life or changes that we are trying to make. So someone has asked the question, what exactly is my definition of mental fitness? which is a good question. So for me, mental fitness is about being in a space and a place where you are balanced, where you are healthy, and where you are grounded mentally. Okay. So, what's interesting is that when we think about physical fitness and physical health, people have a clear understanding around that. They know what it means, to be, in terms of your blood pressure, in terms of your weight, in terms of your condition. Well, I think it's just as important to have that type of mental fitness. And when I say mental fitness, I'm talking about how you think, your thinking processes. I'm talking about your ability to be able to manage and cope with stresses. I'm talking about what it is in terms of how you operate when there is something stressful going on. So, the average human being experiences 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of those are rumination. Now, if fear and anxiety is the controller of those thoughts the majority of that time, will that mind be mentally fit? And so when we have mental fitness, it is about the conditioning of our thought processes to enable us to be mentally strong. Just as in terms of physical exercise, the more we train and pump those weights or run, our body becomes physically strong because the brain is a muscle. And so to be mentally fit is to train our brain in the way that is beneficial and helpful for us to navigate through life. So we are able to operate out of gratitude rather than complaining, that we are able to have more hope than fear. And so mental fitness for me is about having and developing the muscles to enable us to think in the right way that helps us around mental fitness. I know some people are texting it. A few people having problems getting on. Let me just text them. So I think another point in terms of mental fitness is that it's really important that we create mental pit stops throughout the day. It's really important that we create mental pit stops throughout the day. And what I mean by that is that just as, like in Formula One racing, and they would have, these periods where they stop the car and they kind of get those changes made. Well, throughout the day, we need to do that mentally. So you could, for example, be going into a stressful meeting, or you've had a stressful meeting and you come out of that and your brain's frazzled, or you've got these emotions and these feelings going on and all these thoughts going on in your head. And sometimes we just go on to the next meeting. We don't have that mental pit stop. We don't give ourselves that opportunity to rebalance ourselves. We don't give ourselves that space and that time to recalibrate so that our mind can be focused again. Not dwelling on the past of what's just happened, but to be present in the moment, because that's what mindfulness is all about. And so it's really important that we create those pit stops throughout the day, those mental pit stops, those moments when we give ourselves a bit of space to just reflect and maybe let go of something that we need to let go of so that we then can move on with the day in a healthy and productive way. So it's really important that we do have those mental pit stops, those spaces where we just have that time to just collect our thoughts and maybe let go of some of those negative ruminating thoughts that create a negative energy. So, anyone else? Any questions? Everyone is quite quiet in terms of the questions. So I have another question coming through my thing. So it says, so what are the tools then? What are the tools? Okay, so there's lots of different tools that we can use in terms of our mental fitness. I think one of the tools which is really important is to be able to catch ourselves when we are starting to think in negative thought patterns. How do we do that? How do we know? So I've said already that we have 60 to 70,000 thoughts that we experience in a day. And the easiest way to be able to identify what's going on in that moment is by how you feel. So it's important to recognize words are the language of the brain, feelings and emotions is the language of the body. So when your body starts to speak to you through the feelings and emotions that you're experiencing, so if it's things like fear, anxiety, and worry, it will be the butterflies in the stomach, it will be the cramps, it will be all of those things, the tunnel vision, all those things that affect your body is the indicator to you that the thoughts that you are thinking are triggering it in a negative way. So it's really important to be able to identify when we are thinking in that way, and then we can make a conscious decision to change the frequency by our breathing and by our thoughts. Your breathing and your thoughts are two of the easiest but greatest ways to be able to manage our thoughts and how we feel. Everything we do in terms of how we feel, we will have a breathing pattern that relates to it. So when you are anxious and worried about something, how is your breath? Short and shallow breaths are are happening to allow for more oxygen to get into your body to the arms and legs where it's most needed, because your body is preparing itself for fight or flight. Now, when we are aware that that's happening, we can make a conscious decision to take deep, slower breaths so that we activate our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest, and then that slows us down, that calms us down. That's why, for any of you who've ever witnessed or personally experienced having a panic attack, if the emergency services were called, what they would do, they wouldn't give them any medication, they wouldn't put anything on, and they'll give them a brown bag and they'll say, take deep breaths, because we are able to slow ourselves down just by our breathing. And so the breathing is really significant. And the other thing is our thoughts. Now, our thoughts are so powerful. They are so powerful that they create our reality. I'm going to read something to you in a bit about that. But our thoughts are so powerful to create our reality. So you've heard of the placebo effect. The placebo effect is basically when, um, in a blind study, where an individual is given a pill that they're told is the medication to heal them or to help them in whatever that area is, but it's actually a sugar pill. But because that individual believes that it is the medication that would heal them, they actually heal themselves by their thoughts. It's called the placebo effect. There's many studies that have used this. This is, you can research this and you'll see it. There's videos, there's research, there's documents on it. But what many people are not aware of is the nocebo effect. Now, the nocebo effect is the opposite of the placebo, where actually people believing they have things that they don't even have can create their sickness. That's why every disease is first manifested in the mind with dis-ease. It's the thoughts that we think that create the vibrational energy that can actually create that sickness, or that can actually heal us even though we've only had a sugar pill. So it's really important that we do understand how powerful and how important our thoughts and our breathing is. So that's two strategies that we can use. I'm just checking because but can't see me. Some people saying they can't see me. Um, So yeah, so it's really important. It's really important that we do utilize and use um, tools, natural tools that are available to us. So if you are down, is that to do with mental fitness? Could be, and maybe not. I mean, it's not to say that we can't be down, we can't be upset, we can't have situations happen um, that affect us, because we can. Life isn't. We're not going to be happy 100% of the time. Okay, so we can be down. We can have periods and episodes. Now there is a difference. You can have an experience, something that you go through, and you have a period of time where you feel down or where you feel angry, you feel upset. But the thoughts that you think and entertain and meditate on is going to influence how long you stay in that state. And so that's what's really key, because the words that we speak have power to either bring life or death. There's a saying that says where the mind goes, the energy flows. Where the mind goes, the energy flows. So it's really important that we are aware of that, because it does have an impact. I'm having a lot of people trying to get in, and they're saying they can't see me or hear me. So I'm just trying to. I don't know why it's not allowing me to be seen. Um, yeah. Okay. I don't know why it's not showing me. Okay. But yeah, so it is really important. It's really important for those who can't see. I don't know why it's doing that. But yeah, so I hope that answered your question, Nathan, in terms of that. Okay, so yeah, people are texting me to ask questions. That's cool. How then do you counter and combat negative thoughts? Very good question. How do you combat negative thoughts? Okay, so one of the things that we have to learn to do, or what we have to realize, is that we cannot believe every thought that we think. We have so many fleeting thoughts that come through our mind. We have so many um, issues, thoughts, feelings, reflections that just come. They're fleeting thoughts. They're like birds that fly over our heads. What we have to learn to do is to see our thoughts as someone else speaking to us. And I know that might sound weird if you've never heard that before, but see your thoughts as a separate entity, as someone else that is speaking to you. Because if the way that we sometimes think, if someone else was saying that to us, we would never put up with it. But we often put up with it because it's our own thoughts. And so this gives way for the rats, which is what I call the reoccurring afflicted thoughts, those negative thoughts to run rampant in our lives and in our minds. And the mind is the battlefield. There will be no greater battle than what you have to face than what is in your mind. No greater battle. There's no greater battle than the issues, the concerns, the fights, the battles, the criticism, the self analysis that we say to ourselves. No one else will put you through as much pain and trouble as we put ourselves by our negative thoughts. And so it's really important that we do learn to manage these negative thoughts, and also recognize that we don't have to pay attention to them. We don't have to pay attention to every thought. And we have to always validate the evidence before we believe the thought. So if someone came to me and said, "You are a white female," I wouldn't need to pay that no mind. I wouldn't even pay any interest to that. But sometimes the negative thoughts that we are experiencing are saying some of the outrageous things that ain't true, but we still take it on board. And so this is why I'm saying we have to see our mind as a separate entity, as something different speaking to us, so that we can then filter out what we are going to accept and what we're going to ignore. So I hope that helped to answer the question regarding how do we combat negative thoughts. So I want to read something to you. Um, it says, the person that you speak to the most has the greatest impact on you, and that person is you. And so inner conversations are key that we understand about this. So most of our inner conversations are based on the past via our subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind is where memories, beliefs, emotions, and habits are stored like a warehouse. And so, what it is very important that we are aware of the role that our subconscious plays in terms of our memories, our beliefs, our emotions, and our habits. And those inner conversations are happening all the time. 95% of the time, our subconscious mind is active. It's only 5% of the time that we're using our conscious awareness. And so it's really important for us to be able to reflect and analyze over different things in our life. Because we can hold on to the memory of the past or something that went wrong and allow that to never allow us to move forward. We can hold on to certain types of emotions that have been triggered in the past and allow that to control our future. And what happens is the more that we program our body by certain emotions, is the more that it creates an automatic response. Just as in the same way as someone who's trained doing martial arts for many years, it becomes second nature for them to do that block or that strike if someone attacks them. And so it's important that we are aware of how we are conditioning our body to react rather than respond by the things that we are continuously doing. I'm just checking my phone to see if there's any more questions because um, people are sending me messages via this. Okay, cool. So we become what we think about. We become what we think about. And so it's really important that we are aware of this. We become what we think about. There is not one successful person in any field, in any business, in any organization that got there by consistently telling themselves they're a failure, they're never going to be able to do it, they're rubbish. And so what we think about, we become. And it's really important that we understand this. If you want to achieve a goal, you have to believe that you can get there. And you have to speak about yourself, think about yourself, and behave in ways that actually lead you in that direction of where you want to go. And this is why mental fitness is so important. Fitness is about something you're keeping up with, something that you're consistently doing. And negative thoughts are much more powerful than positive thoughts. For one negative thought, you can need like 6 or 7 positive things to counteract that. And that's why it can be so damaging when we are thinking in negative ways, especially when we have a pattern of doing that. It actually impacts on the brain. It can actually, in some cases, studies have shown shrink the brain, shrink the amygdala. So it's really important that we are aware of that. But I want to read you something. This was from Andrew Newberg, who is the director of research for medicine Okay, so this is someone who knows what he's talking about, and is this about how thoughts become real. So check this out. He says, in the center of our brain, there is a walnut-shaped structure called the thalamus, and it replays sensory information about the outside world to other parts of the brain. It says, when we imagine something, this information is also sent to the thalamus. So when we imagine something, not something is true, when we imagine something, okay, it sends that information to the thalamus like real information that's sent to the thalamus. And he said, this is the director for research for medicine. He says, our research suggests that the thalamus treats these thoughts and fantasies in the same way as it processes sound, smells, tastes, images, and touch. And it does not distinguish between our inner realities and our outer realities. So I'm going to pause there for a second because there's a bit more. So what he's basically saying is that the thalamus has the ability to capture our fantasies in exactly the same way as it captures smell, which is real, sound, which is real, taste, which is real, images, which is real, and touch, which is real. Why do you think when all of us as children, where we had Lego bricks, we could see a spaceship and this big war going on? Why do you think when people who suffer with extreme anxiety can have panic attacks over something that's not even happening? Because what you think about, you create. Now, this can serve us well in the cases of visualization and having a vision, and it can afflict us greatly in terms of if we are worrying and using the worry chain, or if we have extreme anxiety about something that is a perceived threat. He goes on to say this: thus, if you think you are safe, the rest, but if you ruminate on imagery fears and self-doubt, so not that there's a real fear, but it's what you're believing to be a fear, or if you're having self-doubt, even though you are capable of doing that task, your brain presumes that there is a real threat in the outer world. Our language based thoughts shape our consciousness. Our language based thoughts shape our consciousness. And consciousness shapes the reality we perceive. So choose your words wisely because they become as real as the ground in which you walk on. This is the director for research for medicine that has proven through studies that this happens. So when we are talking about mental fitness, you have the ability and the capacity to imagine your way into wellness, to imagine your way to finding an answer out of your problem. If you continuously tell yourself, I have the solution, if you continuously tell yourself the answers are going to come to me, if you continuously envision yourself having confidence in doing whatever that task is you want to do, I guarantee you over time, you will be able to do it. So it's when we are talking about mental fitness, there is tools that the body has given us to give us the empowerment we need. And this is why things like affirmations are so important. The things that you say to yourself, the anchoring thoughts that you have to keep you grounded, they are key. They are so important in enabling you to stand and complete the end of the race, to go through and be able to achieve those things that you want to do. So it's really important. I'm just checking for. So someone has said a lot of what you were saying is regarding self-esteem. So when yours is, when it gets deflated, how do you regain that confidence? Okay, so when we go through, so I'm gathering what you're talking about is that when we have a situation, a circumstance that frazzles us, we lose our cool, we forget all of the stuff that's gone out of our head. Okay, and in that moment, what happens? Okay, we're not calm anymore, isn't it? We're anxious, we're worried with whatever's going on. We have to. So imagine it like this. Imagine inside in your mind is filled with water. Well, there is water anyway. There's a whole load of water in our brain. Our brain is 78% water. But there's all this water going on, right? And when we are calm, it's still. When something happens that frazzles us and makes us worried, it's like a wave. It's like a storm. Okay? It's like a storm that's going on inside of our mind. And so what we have to do is we have to calm that storm. Now, the only way that we can calm that storm, or the only way that that storm will continue to manifest itself, is our thoughts. Your thoughts and your breathing are the two ways to calm that. Now, if something's going on and there is a situation and it's a bad situation and I'm worried about it, I can then say to myself, right, I'm going to take some deep breaths to calm myself. And then I'm going to have a bit more clarity to find a direction in which way I'm going to go. Or I can say, oh my God, this is terrible. What are we going to do? How am I going to get out of this? And I'm just amping up that wave in my mind. And so it sounds like it's, oh, that's too simple, but that's exactly what works. We have to stay calm or get ourselves to a place of calmness when these things are going on. And it is breathing, and it is mindfulness, and it is using those affirmations, and it's reminding ourselves of what we have done in the past to overcome that situation. Now, if you're talking about self-esteem and confidence in terms of your ability to be able to step up to the plate and to do things, that's a process. That's a step-by-step process. And so when we think about confidence, we have to remember that you are confident in things that you feel you have the ability to do. Okay. Now this is where it gets tricky if we are doing things like procrastinating, and I'll tell you why. Whatever you practice, you become good at. Now, if there is small things that you should be doing and you don't do it, when it comes to doing a big thing, it's going to be even more of a struggle for you. So this is why it's important to, as they say, think of every task that you need to do as a fruit and eat your fruits every day. Because what it does is when you have a small task and you do it, it gives you a dopamine release, and then it reinforces you that you are capable and able to do something. When you don't do it and then a bigger issue comes up, you are already training your brain to delay stuff. And so a bigger problem has come. So we naturally want to delay that. And then that psychologically plays an impact on us because you're given space now for the inner critic, for the rats, the reoccurring afflicted thoughts to come and attack you mentally. Because we are in a war. That's why I said the mind is the battlefield. So it's really important. It's really important. Okay, so I'm just checking. Okay, so someone else has said, would you agree that the government messaging plays on perceived thought processes, created fear in the population concerning COVID-19? Very good question. So I think I think not just with COVID-19. I think the news in general. I mean, it's negative news. Negative news sells, isn't it? Most of the time, when you look at the news, they're not saying anything positive. They're not saying anything that's going to edify your mind. It's negative news that sell. It's doomsday thinking. And so, one of the things for me is I don't even watch the news because I know that 99% of the time, I don't leave that interaction feeling positive. And so it's really important if we think of it this way. Um, what we do sometimes and what we allow our gates, and when I say gates, I'm talking about our eye gates and our ear gates to experience, we don't do in any other area of our life. If you've bought a brand new pair of shoes, which are white or trainers, you won't go out in the rain in those or when it's muddy. You won't, you're careful. You don't want no one to be stepping on them because you are looking after and preserving something that's important to you. But when it comes to our mind, sometimes we allow our ears and our eyes to be seen and exposed to things that do not serve us in any shape, way, or form. And my question is, why do we do that? Because it's not serving you. You know, television is exactly what it is. Tell you a vision. And it tells you a vision that's not productive. And so if something is constantly telling you a vision that doesn't serve you, the question is, why are you watching it? And so I made the decision, it's down to each individual, to not watch it because it doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve me in any way. And that's why I have a lot more resilience because I'm not constantly feeding myself something that's actually attacking me. So I hope that's answered your question regarding that. Yes, so some people are saying you can't see me. I know, I don't know why the video is showing black, but as long as you can hear me, that is the main thing. So yeah, that's the main thing. So any other questions? We've got another 10 minutes to go. I want to read something else to you, just while I'm waiting to see if anyone types anything or shares anything. Is so this is an interesting one. So the thoughts, ideas, concepts, and beliefs that you have about yourself govern your life and create your identity. So all behavior that I operate out of and that you operate out of is a reflection of your beliefs. And it's important that we understand that. The more that you understand that and begin to apply that in your life, is you'll realize why you make certain decisions and choices, why certain times you delay and certain times where you steam ahead, why sometimes you don't respond to things that you know you should, and sometimes you don't respond to things that you know you should. It's because of the beliefs that we hold. And that's really important that we understand that. That shapes everything that we do, your belief. And the question we have to ask yourself is, what is your belief in whatever that situation is? When you don't stand up to someone that you know you should, what is your belief in that situation? Where you doubt yourself in a certain area, what is your belief in that situation? And then that is where we can then start to look at, because beliefs, most experts say, are developed in the first 7 years of your life. The programming that we receive in the first 7 years of our life then dictates the rest of our life, unless we choose to go back and upgrade some of those belief systems. And so any of those beliefs that you know that you hold about yourself that are counterproductive, is for you to make that conscious decision now to say, that happened then, that's not what I'm going to receive. And that could have been from our parents, could have been from our siblings, it could have been from just experience, it could have been from ex-partners, whatever it is. But we do not have to allow those same beliefs to hold us victim today. We do not have to allow them to hold us in a mental prison today. And so it's important to recognize any unhealthy behavior that you operate in. You have to understand there is a belief system that feeds it. There is a thought process that guides it. And the more that we can look over those and address those, is the more that our life will change and transform. Okay, so I'm just checking. Someone is typing. So yeah, so I think it is really important that we, in terms of mental fitness, that we do simple things also to help ourselves. Sleeping is very important. Lack of sleep is just as dangerous as lack of water. Okay, it's really, really, really important. Okay, so someone has said, um, how can one deal with the imposter syndrome? Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. So, the imposter syndrome, you know, one of the things is that we are our worst critics. We are our worst critics. We find problems to every solution. Someone gives you a compliment and we say, oh, it was only cheap. I only got it from so and so place. And what that is that stems from, and it's a belief system. That's a belief system that goes back. You can stem back and see where where there is scripts. So there's a thing what we call life scripts, and life scripts is when we're growing up, there would have been things that would have happened to us, or things that our parents used to say to us. And what happens is we can hold on to those life scripts that we have been given from young, or from a partner, or from someone previously in our lives, and we hold on to that life script subconsciously and not realizing we're still taking it on. So someone may have said, you'll never be able to do that. Someone might have said, why are you always trying to prove yourself to people? Someone would have said these words to you. And the interesting thing is the research shows that the anterior cortex, which is where pain is regulated, the brain makes no distinction between physical and emotional pain. And so when people say things that are harmful and hurtful for us, people are carrying the scars, the emotional scars of that, which are often much deeper than physical scars for 10, 15, 20, 25 years. When I worked in the prisons, there was a guy once who I was working with, and we hit a milestone in terms of things that were going on for him. And he said, you know what you have shared with me now has now freed me from something that's held me bound for 15 years. I think I can deal with my addiction now. It's amazing how words can keep us stuck. And so when we come to the imposter syndrome, why would you think you're an imposter? If you were trying to do something and you're trying to grow and get better, why would we think that? It's only because we're clashing with what someone else has previously said to us. We're clashing with the emotional scars that we have from what other people have done and how other people have put us down. And so, with the imposter syndrome, it is about having those positive thoughts. It is about having, so I put it to you this way. I said to you about the rats, the reoccurring afflicted thoughts. Well, cats like to eat rats and mice, don't they? So you need your cat, your counteractive, affirmative thought to deal with your rat. That's how you deal with the imposter syndrome. Whenever it comes, you slap it back with a positive thought. Whenever it tries to present itself, you slap it back with your affirmation. Because I'll tell you one thing, and if you didn't listen to anything else, remember this, right? Your inner critic and my inner critic, your rats and my rats, your inner monkey and my inner monkey is the biggest bully you will ever have to face in your life. If you remain silent, if you just sit there docile and take it, you will be a victim for the rest of your life. This is why I say the mind is the battlefield. You have to fight. You have to fight for your mental freedom, because those 20,000 thoughts a day, there is nothing else that you would encounter as much as you encounter your thoughts in a day. There is no one else who could attack you as much as your mind attacks you if you allow it to. but you can beat it into subjection. You can train your mind. Now, the interesting thing, the subconscious mind, okay, was programmed to think negatively. But you know what? That virus that we may have infected it with, there is an antivirus. We can change and turn that around. Now, there is 2 points in the day where we are in a kind of hypnosis state. That's when we first get up and when just before we go to sleep. This is why they say to you, if you have worries or you're anxious about something before you go to bed, they say to write it down, because when you write it down, it's a cathartic process and you're releasing the energy. Or they'll say to do some mindfulness. Now, when you do that, when you either listen to something positive or you do some meditation or some mindfulness, when you first get up and just before you go bed, you are programming your subconscious mind. The more often you do that, you are changing the frequencies of how your subconscious mind operates. Now, remember, 95% of the time we are using our subconscious mind. So if you subconsciously are programming yourself every night before you go to bed to worry about something, and you're wondering why you wake up with anxiety. So it's really important. This is a warfare. You may lose the battle, but don't lose the war. So you have to look at it in this way. When those thoughts are coming, that is the enemy trying to steal your bread. And so you have to slay it. You have to counteract it. You have to fight it. And the more you do that, is the more you'll start to free up space in your mind for positivity, for positive thoughts, for you to be able to do those things that you want to do. So it's really key. It's really key. It's really important. And the more that you do that, practice becomes perfect. What you put in is what you get out. And I tell you something, as the saying says, you cannot reap where you have not sown. You cannot reap where you have not sown. So what are you going to sow from today? Is it going to be faith or fear? Is it going to be hope or despair? It's only you that can make that change. I can't put it into your mind. You can't put it into my mind. But everyone must take accountability for their own thoughts, because your thoughts determine how you feel, and your feelings create your behaviors. And so, yeah, we have to renew our minds. We have to renew our minds. And I tell you what, just because you failed at something yesterday, don't mean you'll fail at it tomorrow if you try again. And I said this for those of you who watched my webinar on pain and failure, friend and foe, that 8 out of every 10 millionaires was once bankrupt. So it's not that they became millionaires because they knew it all. They learned from their mistakes. They failed and got better. Most people, when we look at them at the end, at the top of the iceberg, the 10%, and we see them when they're excelling, we think that they were just like that. And it wasn't. They went through the same process that everyone else has to go through. But in every situation and in every circumstance, we have a choice in terms of what we're going to do. And so I hope that you make the right choices in your life with every decision, with every situation, and with every circumstance, that you choose to operate out of what I call self-care. And my definition of self-care is this: how you think about yourself, how you talk about yourself, and how you treat yourself. If you do those 3 things, you'll be mentally fit, physically fit, spiritual fit, and emotionally fit. And that is the key that we should all be striving to. And I want to leave you with this one note as we come to round this up. If no one else ain't got no other questions, this is the last note that I want to say. And remember this. And this is a part of there's a concept that I've developed, which is called the empty mind concept. I'm actually going to be designing an online platform course around this, about manifesting your greatness. But there is 3 elements to the empty mind concept. And one of them is this. I'm going to give you this gem for now. Is that even though the mind is one of the greatest things ever created and designed, it has this one limitation that we can use to our detriment or to our benefit. And this is it. The mind can only think on one thing at a time. Now, why is that good and why is that important, or why could it be detriment to us? Because if you choose to think on negativity, if you choose to think on how it's going to go wrong, if you choose to think on the past and all the mistakes that you made, you are creating a very dark future for yourself, because you are programming yourself to only see disaster, doom, and destruction. But on the flip side, if you choose to focus on positivity, if you choose to focus on your strengths, if you choose to focus on the vision, if you choose to focus on your abilities and your skills, then the world is your oyster. And so always remember, you can only think on one thing at a time. And where the mind goes, the energy flows. So always focus on what you can do and that you operate out of the circle of influence rather than the circle of concern. So if there's no more questions, I want to thank you all for attending. I know there was no visuals. I'll sort this out so that next time there is. This is the first time we're doing it. But thank you all for your time, for your comments, and for your questions. This is Ezra, A.K.A. the voice of reason, signing out. Take care, people.